Hello and welcome again to the Writer Review. This is Eric, your writer, and this week we're going to be taking a look back at the 2007 period piece drama titled Elizabeth the Golden Age. Now, Elizabeth the Golden Age runs for an hour and 54 minutes long. It is directed by Shehkar Kupur. It is produced by Tim Bevan, Eric Fellner, and Jonathan Cavendish. The script was done by William Nicholson and Michael Hurst. The score was done by A.R. Rahman and Craig Armstrong. The cinematography was by Remy Adafarison, and the editing was done by Jill Bilcock. And the stars of this movie are Cate Blanchett, Geoffrey Rush, Clive Owens, Rhys Ifans, Jordi Molla, Abbie Cornish, and Samantha Morton. Now, Elizabeth the Golden Age tells the tale of veteran ruler Queen Elizabeth I, played by Cate Blanchett, at the fear of being overthrown by the ever-powerful King of Spain, Philip II, played by Jordi Molla, and he's on a crusade to declare full Catholic dominance in Europe in hopes that his young daughter becomes the new Queen of England to overthrow this dreadfully sinful Protestant queen, which is, of course, Queen Elizabeth I. Meanwhile, the scheming Mary Stuart, better known as Mary Queen of the Scots, played by Samantha Morton, her too has plans of her own to dethrone the Queen by throwing her into her prison. When Sir Walter Raleigh, played by Clive Owen, returns from England after spending years in the New World, Elizabeth becomes enthralled by his presence, as well as her lady-in-waiting, Bess, played by Abbie Cornish. Bess is, of course, Elizabeth Throckmorton, who, of course, if you've ever read historical pieces, she actually became married to Sir Walter Raleigh. Meanwhile, as the story progresses, Chief Advisor Sir Francis Walsingham, played by Geoffrey Rush, continues to negotiate with the court affairs as he listens in on Mary's evil plots. Mary's demise was the perfect foil for Philip to release his infamous Spanish Armada in hopes to overthrow the Virgin Queen, and in hopes that his young daughter takes over as the new Queen of England. Yes, that's right, indeed. This Spanish Armada was definitely a war on religion, and most notably Catholics versus Protestants. See, at one time, Spain was one of the most powerful countries in Europe at the time, and they had a very powerful army, and they had a very dedicated ruler in Philip II. And of course, at one time Spain was uber Catholic. They wanted Europe to be completely Catholic. Anybody practicing faith outside the Catholic Church was described as a blasphemer, a heretic, no matter what, whether you were, and it wasn't just Protestant, if you were practicing Judaism, Muslim, miscellaneous, if you don't practice Catholicism in Philip II's regime, you would be condemned. And Philip would do anything he can possible to overthrow the Queen. If you think that Queen Elizabeth I was sitting comfortably on her throne all day barking orders, you're sadly mistaken. Every day of her life she was faced with the fear of being overthrown just because she happened to be Protestant. One of her famous quotes, I'm not going to impersonate her, but I will say it this was a famous quote that was taken from her, and it goes a little something like this. I know I have the body of a weak and feeble woman, but I have the heart and stomach of a king, and of a king of England too. And think that foul scorn that Spain or any prince of Europe should dare to invade the borders of my realm, to which rather than any dishonor shall grow by me, I myself will take up arms. I myself will be your general, judge, and reward every one of your virtues in the field. This was the words of encouragement Her Majesty gave as she gathers her troops in Tilbury to take down the Spanish Armada in 1588. This golden speech was one of the most quotable words in British history, that's up there with many of that which was said by Shakespeare and Churchill, and that neither Hollywood could ever botch or paraphrase those famous words, no matter how hard they try. Now, what did I think of this movie? Well, let's just say that in 1998, I had the chance to see Elizabeth, which was also directed by Shehkar Kupur, and my reaction was that was an incredibly stunning movie. I still had some issues with the pacing, and I really did not have much of a liking to Joseph Fiennes' character in there. In spite of those shortcomings, that movie had, plenty of Academy Award nominations and other assorted accolades to its credits. 9 years after that, in 2007, they made the much-anticipated sequel, which was empathizing on Elizabeth I and her relationship with Sir Walter Raleigh and the religion wars with Spain. But from my knowledge, I read that the Spanish actually could even go through the English bays because the bays were not overly deep enough, and the usages of fire ships were also problematic. Strange as it seems, but Britain has actually been spared many times thanks to the waters surrounding the little country. Even the biggest ships were overturned due to excess stacking and abysmal weather conditions. Okay, as for the film itself, I'll say one thing though. The costumes and the props and the cinematography were definitely poetic. So on the technical issue, I didn't really have much of a problem with. It did feel like you were living in 16th century England, and I guess the ideologies that was coming from there at the time really felt quite authentic. Whether it's fictionalized homicidal attempt but the historical accuracies, I must say, were way too overwhelming. The historical inaccuracies, that is. Whether it's the fictionalized homicidal attempt by gunpoint or the uses of historical locations, the undermining of Sir Walter Raleigh, and the condemning of the Roman Catholic Church, the misconceptions in the motives of Mary Stuart and the Spanish as a whole, the falsifications of this movie will likely scratch the heads of any historical fanatic. There was not really much historical accuracy. First of all, I want to tell you something. Sir Walter Raleigh did not play a prominent role in the Spanish Armada. I think what they had in mind was Sir Francis Drake, who played the role in conquering and defeating the Spaniards in the Spanish Armada. Not Walter Raleigh. He was just an explorer. He was an exhibitionist, not a swashbuckling pirate. The Spanish Armada was not a pirate adventure. No, it was a war between the very powerful army of Spain trying to overrule Britain. That was what the Spanish Armada was about. It was the epic battle between the Catholics trying to overthrow a Protestant queen and using as much excessive force possible to make that happen. However, on the entertaining level, I actually did find it quite satisfying. Though it gets a thumbs down for me in terms of education, the entertaining value was really up there. And yes, it will definitely keep you on the edge of your seat. But the Spanish Armada is overwrought with a tedious montage sequence preceded by an unorthodox shot at Elizabeth standing in a hallway. The entertainment value is actually pretty good and should leave a positive impression to the open public, though it was still not as good as the first installment. However, there is another reason why we should see another retelling of Elizabeth's life. That is, should we? I mean, she's making more screen appearances than Abe Lincoln, who just seems to practically be in everything. Even fictionalized hullabaloo like Abe Lincoln Vampire Hunter. Need I say more? One of the things that really underwhelmed me about this movie was the lack of a grandeur epic moment. This sequel should have been flooded with highlights to usurp its predecessor. But with the exception of the Armada, this film was watered down quite badly. I guess the scene that really caught my eyes was the one involving Philip II of Spain. Not because of the green hue or his personality as a cowering religious radical, but the peculiar ways the shots were handled, which also includes a rather obscene dance scene ever shot on film. Acting-wise, the supporting cast practically seemed underdeveloped, but still Cate Blanchett shows her true dominance as a leading performer. I mean, Geoffrey Rush was nothing more than just the Queen's whipping boy in this movie, unlike his more prominent role in the first Elizabeth movie. Clive Owens as Sir Walter Raleigh didn't really impress me that much. The romantic triangle between Elizabeth I, Bess Throckmorton, and Walter Raleigh was not really up there. I also thought of that as being a bit of a contrivance. I also felt the even the character role of Philip II could have been a whole lot more better. I mean, he just was not convincing as a villain because of the fact that he had a lack of screen time. No, he doesn't have to be in every scene, but there could have been room for more development and for more further explanation as to why Spain wanted to conquer Britain and what was the real motive behind it. And it should have been done without me having to look through archives and look through books in a library to figure that out. So to summarize, even though this movie was very flawed, historically inaccurate, and not entirely overpowering in its delivery, this sequel is still strongly entertaining to watch if you are a fan of costume dramas. But if you want historical accuracy, it would be better if you just read about it in a textbook. So I guess if I was to give this movie a scale out of 10, I would like to give it, maybe just for the entertaining value, and maybe because of Cate Blanchett's really good performance, I guess I would have to give it a 6. Am I being too generous? No, I think that's a pretty reasonable score. I mean, it's not going to get a 9 out of 10 like the first Elizabeth movie, but this movie, I think giving it a 6 is fair enough. So I guess this ends my rider review. Thank you all for listening in. If you'd like to subscribe to my channel, please feel free to do so. If you want to leave a comment, go right ahead. Remember, be kind, be courteous, and don't be rude. And I will be back again with another review. So until next time, this is Eric, your Red Rider, saying keep watching those movies, and I'll see you around. Goodbye.